Hey, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Tammy Davis, internationally certified master clinical aromatherapist with a background in pharmacology and 10 to 15 years of devoted career research in the area of phytotherapy, meaning plant constituents in relation to their influence on cellular and genetic function, especially in the area of drug development. Although that's not my only area of interest, I am very interested in learning about systems, which is often documented during a lot of the research that goes on when we're studying plants. Therefore, I now consider myself a master clinical phytotherapist. It is in my interest and in everyone else's interest that I get to work with, have the honor of working with, that I integrate how these things work with regards to medications and supplements. My field is a new field. It is one that I have launched. I've talked about this a number of times publicly, although I don't know if I've ever said anything on my videos, but that is the way I see it. I take old world practices and integrate them into modern day health issues. And so what does that mean? That means that the human body is not the same body it was thousands of years ago. It's not even the same body it was 100 years ago. And for that matter, there's no one human body that's identical to anybody else's. Through the Human Genome Project and the ongoing studies of the genome and DNA, I've uncovered a lot of interesting information that's been revealed as far as genetic changes that have occurred. I mean, we clearly can say that we're not the same species. I mean, if you look at us versus our ancestors, there's distinct differences. What they've noted is there's approximately 64 significant changes that have occurred. A couple of them that I always like to talk about is one was the evolution of the opioid receptor and the evolution of the FOXP2 gene. We already recognize opiates for pain relievers, of course, with the epidemic, but it's named such because the opium molecules, or the opiates from opium, fit into that receptor and will activate that receptor. But we actually have our own endogenous endogenous opioid system, which means we produce our own. And the purpose for that is absolutely pleasure. I mean, along with pain relief. But when we're mating, and it has to be able to be something that we come back to in order to preserve the species. The FOXP2 gene complex is found in all animals that make a sound. And I don't know if you can hear the birds. They have one, we have ours. You know, there's differences in that gene complex based on the species. Of course, ours is related to speech and language, but it is also known to be a transcription factor, which means it regulates neurochemistry. Okay, so there's a couple of them, but the purpose of the video today is around the area of the immune system. And like I said, I like to talk about it. I work with let me back up a minute. My field, like I said, is a new field. And I realize there's a lot of people who use plants and herbs and are working in traditional fields that have been practiced for thousands of years. But my theory is, with these changes that have occurred, we can't expect these same practices to have the same effect on the systems that they did thousands of years ago. We have to be able to apply it in a different way. And the most important way is the way cell function is affected. And this is where pardon me, essential oils come in. And that's why I say at no point in time do I feel like I am a threat to anybody else's work or any other professional. I feel like it's a compliment. And I don't mean that like I'm gone, you know what I'm saying. It actually, there's there is a complementary effect where it actually enhances the results of medications. It enhances the effects of acupuncture and so forth. There's a very mindful way of integrating it, like I said, so that we can take these old world practices and actually have them be more effective with regards to today's modern health issues. And the reason why we have so many health issues brings me to the most significant change that I feel it took place back in the early 1300s. It's the 64th one that I've heard was noted. It occurred during the time of the Black Plague, and I've talked about this before. At that time, 70 million people died from that illness. And for the sake of preserving the species, the human genome changed, and it changed without any human influence. It changed on its own. It changed in response to the environment. If I have nothing else to say beyond this point, that is the premise of my entire work, that the human genome, and for that matter, all of nature, responds to the environment. And at that point in time, it responded to the environment, and there's a significant imprint on the immune system, which didn't reverse. So we have this imprint on our system, and according to German scientists, they have found that the major histocompatibility complex is the most diverse immune complex, or genetic complex, that human beings have. I mean, it basically signifies that my immune system is as different as yours, is as different as the neighbors. I mean, they're so varied that it's impossible to come up with a one-size-fits-all, and it is my reason for arguing for the fact that bioindividuality is essential, and why stimulating an immune system is not recommended, nor is suppressing it, because there's so many variations within that that major histocompatibility complex. I mean, it's so diverse. And what I mean by that is you can have, you might have, there's two areas of your immune system which have compartments, how I want to describe that. And so you could have, one could be weaker in areas. I'm trying to come up with names right now, and I'm just drawing a blank, and you'll have to forgive me. But there's the immediate, how do I want to say that? There's the part of the immune system that is our immediate defense against bacteria and viruses, and I believe that's the innate. And if I'm mistaken, I will correct it in the description box below. And then we have the other area of our immune system that regulates all of our immunoglobulins, and those immunoglobulins can be at various, you can have normal levels of one and higher levels of another and lower levels of another. So again, this changes depending on the entire genetic system that we are born with. And of course, the way our lifestyle, our moods and emotions, and especially the environment will all directly impact how that works. And what I want to say is, since the 1300s, the world's never been the same. Our world has changed so drastically, but yet the immune system is still the way it was. And even though it preserved the species back then, which is what nature is designed to do, which is just move forward and life continues, our technology is different. We have nanotechnology, we have medications, we have cleaning supplies, we have body care products, of course, and then we have all the other environmental factors that go on around us in the air and the water and our foods with additives. I mean, there's so much technology, and that basically the body is on high alert. And ultimately what that means is, with it being on high alert, it's under constant stress. And under constant stress means that we are not breaking our nutrients down properly. Therein lies the reason why I say it's absolutely necessary to stabilize the digestive system. And this is not digestion just in the gut and the bowels. This is down to the cellular level. Okay? This is the reason why one of the reasons why we have nanotechnology, is to be able to enhance nutrient uptake by the cells. The reason for that is because they're basically going under the radar when it comes to the immune system, because think about it. If you're not breaking your nutrients down properly, basically meaning your carbs, fats, and proteins, you have larger particles floating throughout the body, which is going to signal, because the body cannot distinguish the difference between a bacteria or larger protein molecule. So now you have a system on high alert. This is one of the reasons why we have to go gluten-free, because gluten is a protein, and depending on the individual genome, it's very possible that that gene, I think it's DDPF4, is turned on. It's turned off, sorry, it's deactivated, in which case we no longer break down gluten. But that's an example. So the body cannot distinguish the difference between larger protein particles and bacteria. So ultimately what ends up happening is an immune reaction goes, whoom, and we are, this system is on high alert. And again, depending on your system, you are going to have different reactions. So the immune system is not just colds and flus or rashes that we might get on the skin. It's also when you injure yourself. If you're exercising, exercise constantly breaks down tissues. I firmly believe that every one of us is walking around with hormonal imbalances as a result of, and I don't even like to say hormonal imbalance, it's an, our hormonal system is not in a position to function ideally because it is reacting with the immune system. It is responding to the fact that nutrients are being, digestion is slowed and chemicals are needed for other purposes. But the funny thing is that we're not running for our lives. Basically, we should be, but we're not. And I mean that just because of the environment, but we're not. So the chemistry is not being used to digest our foods. It is being used for survival. And as a result, we have hormonal imbalances. And if you're exercising and you're already stimulating the growth hormone and you're activating the immune system, okay? Because the tissues have to be repaired, right? I mean, this is what comes with weightlifting. This is the reason why, even no matter what kind of exercise, every time you move, you're breaking fibers and the fibers have to be repaired. And over time, this becomes an issue for many, many people because, I mean, I've seen weightlifters develop varicose veins, depending, again, on their genetics. And so circulatory system is impacted, as well as the tissue redevelopment after working out. So this is all immune system. This is all hormonal immune system relations. And it's another reason why it's not possible, and nor is it feasible, to address every single body in the same manner. So that, like I said, that's the reason for nanotechnology, because they're trying to get under the radar. They're trying to get those molecules those particles into the cells to actually help nourish. So it makes a lot of sense, the intention of nanotechnology. But I'm concerned about long-term effects. I was actually talking to one of my Amish clients yesterday, and he and I we had a great conversation, and that was what he said. Well, what about the long-term effects? I thought, thank you, at least for somebody's thinking beyond the immediate symptom relief. Now, yes, symptom relief is definitely a form of stress relief, but it is not relieving stress at the cellular level. And again, as I said, digestion is massively important, but it's not just how we're breaking the foods down, it's also how the foods are being assimilated. And again, the nanotechnology is helping with the assimilation process, but it's not doing anything for the immediate breakdown. So we're truthfully not getting the macros that we need for helping to restore a more stable hormonal system. And again, there's evidence of unstable hormonal systems everywhere. You got people who are too skinny. You've got people who are storing excess fat. We have movement disorders such as Parkinson's. We have mood disorders. We have other diseases. I mean, it's all indicative of hormonal instability and immune instability, or a hyperactive immune system. So some things we can do for the digestive system. Number one, huge, nourish the liver. I believe I've got some documents that I'm happy to share with you on ways that you can nourish the liver with whole foods. You know, it's important that we use as many wholesome foods as possible that will actually nourish the liver. Things that you can do for the digestive system include fresh ginger root and bone broth. You can make a soup just out of that if you wanted to, but that, you know, a little bit of that every single day makes a world of difference for the gut and the bowels. It's not doing anything for the for cell assimilation, so we'll get there. But that would be the next step. Other things that we could do would be to include spirulina, not necessarily spirulina and a lot of green powders, but actually taking spirulina on its own, a very good potent source of spirulina, so that you actually are helping your body produce vitamin D. I don't know how many people actually know that vitamin D is a hormone, but that is one that we are supposed to make, and I can't tell you the number of people that I know that take vitamin D, and that it's not a bad thing. I do, again, understand the purpose for that, but if we keep giving the body what it's supposed to need, what it's supposed to make, we're basically telling it, you don't worry about it, you don't need to make it, and so it won't make it. And they've identified the fact that the United States alone is epidemically low in vitamin D, that was the word that they used, and also epidemically low in magnesium. So whole food based nutrition is essential, and so spirulina would be a really good one to help protect the cells, cleanse the cells, and help provide a precursor that helps the body produce vitamin D. Yes, sunshine is necessary. There's a lot of great benefit. We don't have to spend a lot of time in the sun. Believe it or not, if you actually go out in the sunshine and don't wear sunglasses for about 10 minutes, you have all you need is 10 minutes in the sun, and you have 3 times a week. Well, depending on your skin color and your hair color, I mean, basically depending on your coloration, if you tend to be on the darker side, then you're going to want to spend a little bit more time in the sun, maybe 15 to 20 minutes, 3 times a week. But that's all we need. And if you don't wear your sunglasses, you are sick. Your body can actually process again its own sunscreen because we have that ability wired into us. So these are huge. This is huge ideas for, number one, again, digestion, and number 2, hormonal system, and vitamin D is essential for a healthy immune response. And so what we're ultimately trying to do, besides relieve stress response, as we know it, is we're trying to relieve it at the cellular level. Again, symptom relief is a big indicator, is a big help in the area of stress relief, because when the body isn't hurting and the body, and we're not dealing with all of those symptoms, we can kind of relax a little bit, but we still are not addressing the environmental impact that the human body is undergoing. And so, and you might say, well, how come animals and plants are doing better? Well, let's just say domesticated animals are not doing as well. There's higher incidences of cancer. And so that's clearly a sign of, that could be a whole nother video, but, given the fact that we feed them, and there is they do have their own minds and they have their own emotions. Depending on who's watching this, you may or may not agree with me, but there's a number of reasons why our domesticated animals, and I actually believe they're finding some impact in the wild as well. Haven't looked a lot into that, but I can honestly say that no, the plants and the animals are not getting by with scot-free. I mean, they are being affected by the environment as well, just not to the magnitude that the human body is, because the human body, again, suffered greatly hundreds of years ago, and there were changes that were made, and then we have subsequently changed the world as we knew it, and the body is struggling to keep up. It is basically reacting to what we've provided it, and so that's a big factor. So this is the reason why I say the human body is not what it was. And when we are going to take old world practices, traditional practices, and apply them to today's health issues, we have to take into account the environmental influence that's occurring, and we have to begin to address this. We can't address it from a textbook case any longer. We have to address the individual. That is another reason why I don't talk about these things specifically on my videos, because I can't just come out and say certain things. I can't give you 100% guarantee that if I recommend oils in this case, I know I've recommended certain foods, but if I recommend oils, it's not going to be a one size fits all. Let's say, for instance, influencing the uptake of vitamin D, not necessarily the production of vitamin D, but the uptake of vitamin D. I would recommend a particular essential oil from the Citrus aurantium plant, known as petitgrain. That plant, they actually distill various different parts of the plant to get different types of oil, but petitgrain itself is very good in helping the body utilize vitamin D. But on that note, if you take blood thinners, it's not recommended that you use petitgrain. So there's going to be something else that has to be taken into consideration, and then your individual system. So there could be other ways to help improve the uptake, but we have to use caution. As far as stabilizing the immune system is concerned, couple ideas. First one would be myrrh. How do I want to say that? Well, myrrh, black pepper, and German chamomile would be the 3 oils that I would recommend for helping to stabilize the immune system. Again, it depends on the individual, and more importantly, it depends on the medications, because those particular medications, those particular oils do interact with a number of medications and are, as far as the way the medication is being metabolized on the CYP450 enzymes, these oils are also. And so in this case, German chamomile is not recommended for alongside any SSRIs. It just hands down, it's just not recommended for that. So there's a couple, like I said, and the same thing goes for myrrh, and the same thing goes for black pepper. We have to use a little bit of caution because of the way the body is going to metabolize not just those oils, but also the medications and the potential conflict. Because these chemicals have the ability to either inhibit or influence enzyme activity, and as do the medications. That's the whole reason. That's actually how medications work. They have the ability to regulate enzyme functions so as to keep them in the body longer, or actually help get rid of them faster. So all of those things need to be taken into consideration. But like I said, petitgrain is a really good one. It comes from the Citrus aurantium plant. But although it's not recommended for anybody who's taking blood thinners, and myrrh, black pepper, and German chamomile are ones that I would recommend for stabilizing the immune system. But at no point in time do I ever agree with stimulating or suppressing. I realize in some cases, if we have, a cold or a flu, it's always good just to stabilize. If you get a cold or the flu, your body basically is letting you know it has been stressed. It's not that the immune system isn't working; it is in fact working. So again, the immune system is used for a number of reasons in our body, not just to prevent colds and flu. But if you have a cold or a flu, it means that your body was stressed, and it is letting you know that it has been exceptionally taxed, and these little buggers got in and made you ill. If you have allergies, that's an indicator that you pretty much have some overactive immunoglobulins. So again, it's not about suppressing or even inhibiting histamine, it's about stabilizing. And if it is a histamine issue, which it is in the case of allergies, then there are some other things that you can get involved in with regards to stabilizing the immunoglobulins. Magnesium is really, really good at calming the immune system. as is quercetin. Now, I've had other comments in other videos about people who took quercetin and didn't notice a big change. I would say, number one, increase the amount of quercetin you're taking, and you have to stick with it. You have to give your body a chance. The one thing that I realize about nature is it takes its time. And I learned that lesson really well when it comes to raising succulents, which I'm really kind of cool as happy to say. I'm actually going to be doing some little art ideas together with succulents that are going to go into a gallery. But I learned the hard way with succulents because I was so familiar with other plants that when I didn't see something happening or I felt dry dirt, it's like, they're going to die, and I just overdid it. So nature's been very valuable in that sense in teaching me patience. And so if you are trying to quiet histamine in your system, and this allergies goes for food sensitivities and so forth, you know, there are ways that you can incorporate oils that would help relieve, but again, it depends on the individual, because just because somebody has a histamine intolerance, or it doesn't mean that there's other things that are happening. You know, chances are there's anxiety going on, and so helping to again stabilize the digestion, stabilize the hormonal system, and stabilize the immune system. And again, like I said, magnesium and quercetin are the two of the supplements that I would recommend for doing that. When it comes to something along those lines, the oils that help stabilize the immune system are German chamomile, myrrh, and black pepper, although they are not always recommended if you're taking other medications. And truthfully, guys, those three oils will not cut out the histamine. They will help stabilize the immune system, but we're going to have to factor in some other things in there to help kind of benefit the entire body. And again, we can stabilize digestion also with oils. And we can stabilize the the hormonal system with oils. I'm not into regulating different glands like the thyroid or the adrenals or anything like that, because we're singling out, and I'm about stabilizing the entire system. Again, if you're seeing other clinicians, you know, they may be targeting that specific thing. You may have thyroid issues, you may have adrenal burnout. And so you're seeing a professional who's already addressing that. That's great. My go-to at that point, and always, is about stability. If you're only working with me, then I might actually go into the other realm of specifically addressing something more, and as well as stabilizing. So if you're working with me, let me just clarify. If you're working with me, we will address specific symptoms as well as stabilize. If you're working with somebody else, then I will only come in and help you stabilize. That's kind of how I see it. And so it's really understanding what you're doing and who you're doing it with, and I should say, and you know, and working together as a team. So that was a lot of words for basically emphasizing the fact that the immune system is unique, and we have to treat it as a powerhouse. It is actually working on our behalf, and we may not like what it's doing, but it is actually responding to the world that we've given it to respond to. And so the only way to overcome any of our health issues is to provide stability to the system. It's not looking for balance, it's stability. The body constantly seeks balance. And this is how nature survives. So what we need to do is come in and provide stability. Yes, there are people with chronic symptoms that do need additional support, and that is absolutely necessary. So I'm just all about emphasizing the stability component to this and understanding how what I'm suggesting is going to interact with everything you're currently doing. On that note, I really appreciate you joining me. Feel free to visit my website, synergessence.com. If you'd like to work with me, I have consults available that you could sign up for there. If you decide that you would like for me to formulate some blends for you, the consult is thrown in as complimentary. So you won't pay for the consult, you'll just pay for the blends. If you have any questions for me, Tammy at synergessence.com. Feel free to follow me. I'd love to have you follow me on Instagram at TammyDavis8, and the same thing goes for Twitter at TammyDavis8, and I happen to have a business page on Facebook called Synergescence. So I look forward to connecting with you somewhere along the line, and I really appreciate you joining me today. Take care.